I was drawn to the Benson Center for two reasons. One is the promotion of Western civilization. My home institution has a core curriculum in the Western tradition, and a lot of the texts that I teach are of that tradition. I was really excited to see that the Benson Center had a mission of promoting that same tradition on a campus like this. But my undergraduate degree is from the University of Kansas. I remember having a Western civilization class there, and that class was really formative for me as a student. I read a lot of things I'd never read before. I would never have been exposed to things I had very strong feelings about and didn't really agree with. For instance, we read parts of some of Freud's work, some of Darwin's work, not that I have anything against either of them, but they were very challenging texts and things that I never had really encountered before. When I saw that CU had a center called the Benson Center for the Study of Western Civilization, I was immediately impressed and intrigued by the fact that this institution would have a center like that. Digging into the kinds of projects that people on sabbatical have focused on here, I saw a lot of overlap with my own broader intellectual interests. Even though I'm a literature person, I have interdisciplinary doctoral degree in politics, philosophy, and literature. So I'm very interested in the connections among those disciplines. And I saw that some of the faculty involved in the center had interests that aligned with my own, and also areas of specialization that were actually gaps in my own education. So I thought this would be a great place to come to learn from colleagues and to be a part of something that would really be kind of minority view at the University of Colorado. The Benson Center's promotion of the Western tradition kind of flies in the face of a lot of trends in the modern academy and contemporary academics, higher education. So I loved the courage, I loved the bravery of that. I love the sort of the confidence that we don't have to shy away from thinking about things that are controversial, thinking about things that are going to challenge some of the maybe ideologies that are very common in higher education today. And then of course the natural pairing with that promotion of Western civilization is the promotion of intellectual freedom, intellectual diversity, intellectual liberty, freedom of speech. So it's not just studying some of these texts, but it's also engaging other people in conversation about these texts, engaging people in conversation about things that are uncomfortable, things that can get you canceled, and not taking for granted. It's not worth taking it for granted that we should all toe a certain line and there are things that should and should not be said. That should not be an assertion, it should be a question. And I see colleagues at the Benson Center constantly asking that question. Not what should or should not be said, but why should something or should something not be said? What kinds of ideas are we afraid of and why are we afraid of them? Should we be afraid of them? What is there to be afraid of? So how does the study of literature bring intellectual diversity and a different perspective? I think the idea that a text should be read through a certain lens, or certain lenses are acceptable and others are not acceptable. I find the lenses that we tend to impose upon literature through theory really limiting, really constricting, and honestly sometimes putting a lens on a text is an excuse for making it into something that will that you can approve of, or that I can approve of, or that I find acceptable. So maybe there's something about the text that I don't want to be true. I'm going to find a way to excuse it, or I'm going to find a workaround. I'm going to find a different way to interpret it so that it fits me and it fits what I think and how I feel and how I identify. And I think that's a wasted opportunity. That approach to literature means that I'm not being challenged, or I'm not letting myself be challenged by a text. And the texts that I'm talking about are very challenging. Homer's Iliad, for example, or Dante's Divine Comedy, any Shakespeare play, more or less, you can think of, poems by Seamus Heaney, W.H. Auden, novels like Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. These are texts that are bottomless. They're inexhaustible. And they are designed by someone who has thought deeply about questions of what it is to be human, and not just someone, but an artist, whether it's a lyric poet or a novelist like Virginia Woolf, or a dramatist like Shakespeare, an epic poet like Homer, or the poet who composed the Iliad, however you want to speak of that composer. These are people who have decided, who've made a choice to craft responses to the deepest human questions through art. If you cancel a text like that, you don't get the opportunity to see that your biases about Western literature or Western civilization are truly unfounded. There are a lot of things that you don't have the opportunity to learn if you decide you're not going to read certain texts, or that only certain texts are acceptable or should be studied, or others should not be studied. So I think that studying literature is an opportunity for people to have a kind of encounter with the truth that is discrete from other ways of knowing. And this is not an insight original to me, but I'm totally persuaded by it. Literature presents truth that is true, but the presentation is it kind of shocks you out of your complacency. It can shake you up. It can move you. It's not just a matter of rational proofs or syllogisms or, rhetorical arguments. There are characters enfleshed in literature. There are poetic moves that are almost akin to music and go under the radar of reason and move the soul in that way. So being open to reading literature means being open to being moved by the truth, ultimately. And I love the fact that at the Benson Center, students are still able to encounter texts they could be moved by without having to be afraid. So that's another thing I love about being here.